From signature squabbles to one of the most watched Senate races in the country, we'll catch up on where Michigan's down-ballot races stand. And why was Oakland County so quick to recover after the pandemic? County Executive Dave Coulter is here. Today is Sunday, May 12th, 2024, and this is Flashpoint. Hi there, and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Christy McDonald, in for Devin Skillian, who has the weekend off. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Kids, I'll be home for brunch in just a few, so keep the coffee hot. Well, in a week that had us dodging spring storms, tornadoes on the west side of the state, we are rolling towards some more settled election scenes here in Michigan. We passed the deadline for candidates, and the races are set. So why the Senate race for Debbie Stabenow's seat is one of the most watched, plus the three key congressional races in the state. Our roundtable is all ready for that. Plus, 4 years post-pandemic, there is one county in Michigan that is leading the recovery. That's according to some new data out of the University of Michigan. What is Oakland County doing that has it surging ahead? Oakland County Exec Dave Coulter is here to talk jobs with me. It's all coming up right now on Flashpoint. Let's get started with the key races to watch. With me at the desk today is Abby Mitch. She's the Executive Director of Michigan Rising Action, and she previously worked as Deputy Chief of Staff to Congressman John James. Abby, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris.
All right, and Michael Griffey, he's an attorney. He's also a contributing columnist to the Detroit Free Press, former candidate in the 13th Congressional District. Mike, it's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, now on my left, Chad Livengood, of course. He is the politics editor and columnist of the Detroit News and what I like to call a Flashpoint frequent flyer. If that didn't stumble me up, then nothing will, right?
You got through that one.
There you go. All right, let's go ahead and start with the Senate race. I'm going to start with you, Chad, because when we look at this, and everyone around the country now is looking at Michigan saying, wait, this is one of the most watched Senate seats that's open right now across the country. Is this shaping up the way you thought it would?
Absolutely. I mean, we already knew that this was going to be a tight race, just given the dynamics of the two parties and what's going on at the top of the ticket. Even though a lot of polling shows Donald Trump leading, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Republican candidate, whoever that may be, emerges as the winner. And Alyssa Slotkin, the Democratic Congresswoman, has a massive multi-million-dollar war chest. She's a really well-established fundraiser, and she's she's really trying to make inroads early, particularly into independents and voters that voting blocks you have to win, particularly in the suburbs of Detroit.
Yeah, Abby, let me swing it over to you. When we first started talking about this race, or maybe even the seat being in play for Republicans, you had Peter Meyer dropping out, Mike Rogers seeming to take up a lot of the air right now. Again, you're going to have a tough primary with Justin Amash and others. What are Republicans saying about the possibility here?
Well, I would say this is the second cycle in a row that the seat has been certainly up for grabs. I mean, my former boss, John James, came dangerously close to unseating Gary Peters in a safe Republican year, more or less, or as it turned out to be. I would say that it tips certainly closer to the Republican than I think Chad believes. And I also would say that I don't think that this primary really gets in the way of voters' temperament toward the Democrat Party. I mean, it's just across the board, like voters are not that interested or not that excited about Joe Biden. Alyssa Slotkin is well heeled, but she is certainly not a very exciting candidate to choose. I think that the top of the ticket weight really will push this toward the Republicans.
Before we get into exactly what some of the issues are that people will be now taking into consideration, Michael, you wrote something in the Free Press this week talking about, when we look at the Democrats and Alyssa Slotkin, that black voters might not be pushing for her at this point, that there is some different dynamics at play in this race.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I saw is, number one, high-level black officials have been endorsing a very long-shot candidate that's Alyssa's opponent in Hill Harper, despite Alyssa being 50 points ahead in polls and having $16 million raised in comparison to $500,000 for Harper. And I think a lot of that has to do with there not being a black congressman or congresswoman in in Michigan.
John James is a black congressman.
A Democrat.
I'm sorry, a Democratic black congress. Excuse me. A Democratic black congress. We're talking about the Democratic primary. And I think one of the reasons that discontent occurred is because there was a thought of not having a protracted primary. And what we're actually seeing that unfolding on the Republican side, not on the Democratic side. So.
All right, so when you hear that, Chad, and you start talking to voters, I mean, what do you think is going to start shaping up that people are taking into consideration?
Well, to Michael's point, we've got to get through the primary here, and Alyssa Slotkin has to survive this primary, and some of the same problems that Joe Biden is experiencing with disaffected black voters, disaffected Arab voters, particularly a large concentration of Arab voters in Southeast Michigan, upset with Joe Biden's stance towards Israel in the ongoing war against Hamas in Gaza. And if Democrats, try to put, hold Alyssa Slotkin accountable the same way, that could be a problem for her in the primary. She still looks like the solid victory. But then, what does this look like in the general election? This is the unsolved question: is if we get this, what I call the two hawks campaign, you get Alyssa Slotkin and you get Mike Rogers, two folks who are sort of pro-national security, pro-Israel. What's going to happen to those voters? Are they going to walk? Are they going to sit it out? They're not going to vote in the president and the U.S. Senate race? Are they going to not vote at all? I mean, if they don't vote at all, that is Mike Rogers and Donald Trump winning Michigan. That is dangerous for Joe Biden and Alyssa Slotkin.
And that is the really interesting point, because you see people, will say, Abby, and be flippant about it, say, well, of course, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump, or they're not going to vote for Republican if you're disenfranchised, if you're a black voter, or you're an Arab American voter who has not been happy with the way the administration has handled what has been going on overseas. But there is a lot of opening to, well, then I'm just going to sit back and not go.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen less and less ballot crossing as election cycles go by. So yeah, I think it's an undisputed fact that it's a turnout game for Michigan as a swing state for really any race that you can think of, and certainly the presidency. I would say, though, that it is very telling that the Democrats are having to spend so much energy in this important pre-primary period shoring up their bona fides with key demographics that should just turn out for them. I mean, I would argue that the persuadable voter in any election, and certainly the U.S. Senate race, is not sitting around going, geez, I really got to think about how the Hamas-Israeli conflict is playing out in my kitchen table. No, people are looking at the price of groceries. They're thinking about, especially if they're somewhere in Macomb or Oakland County, they're thinking about the way that electric vehicles are starting to scoop up their jobs. I think that this leaves a wide open lane for the Republicans to speak directly to the voter.
All right, last kind of comment here on the Senate race. Michael, let me ask you then, in looking at the primary situation for Alyssa Slotkin, what does she need to do?
Well, when I interviewed her, she's doing what she's supposed to do. She's held over 80 events in Detroit alone. She's having significant outreach to the black community. Even if those voters don't vote for her in the Democratic primary, to Chad's point, that matters in a general election. And to Abby earlier, there's not that many persuadable voters. So it is important to shore up and get people energized and enthused, because, people know who they're voting for, or if they're just going to stay at home.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at what I think are three key races, congressional races: the 7th, the 8th, and the 13th. All right. So the 7th and 8th in Lansing and Flint area. But let's start with the 13th right now in Detroit. And I know that you, of course, ran for that seat, Michael. We'll get to you in a second. Chad, I want you to tee it off for me. When we looked at Sri Thanedar is being challenged here in a tough primary, and Adam Hollier, who is back out. Now we've got some signature issues that have been happening here.
It's deja vu in signature issues in a congressional campaign where Sri Thanedar is trying to get Adam Hollier kicked off the ballot for having fraudulent, duplicate, non-voters, voters who don't live in this district, in the 13th congressional district, which is primarily Detroit and some of the suburbs of Wayne County. This is going to ultimately get decided probably by a judge. We have seen candidates not really get to the threshold of 1,000 and still get put on the ballot. John Conyers, when in his 25th term or something, got back on the ballot because of that.
That's right.
And so whether we see a redo of that, we're not. Who knows? But I would be surprised if we do, because given what we saw in 2022, when you had this unprecedented action where 5 or 6 Republican candidates for governor got booted off the ballot in a signature scandal, the precedent has been set now, and it seems like it's going to be hard for the Secretary of State's office and whatnot to do anything that would other than kick Hollier off the ballot. And then that means Sri Thanedar essentially wins this primary. Maybe. I mean, he would go up against Mary Waters, a city councilwoman. He still have a challenge of her. But Hollier was bringing the money. He had the Congressional Black Caucus. He was going to be, having the ability to go up against this multimillionaire who moved to Detroit Detroit and won himself a seat and is really doing everything he can to hold on to it.
Yeah, and he's spending the money. I mean, I see the billboards out there and everything right now. Michael, this is close to you. So when you see this now, this 2 years later, thoughts on it?
Well, it's a different race than it was in 2022. In the race that I was in, there was 9 candidates in the race. And here, there's 4. I think if Ole is kicked off the ballot, I think Mary Waters becomes an instant credible candidate to win the Democratic nomination. There is a significant group of Detroiters at all levels that want to see an African American represent Detroit in Congress. So in that respect, when you look at Mary Waters, she actually has more legislative experience than Sri Tanadar and Adam Ole combined. And she was 200 votes short of becoming a congresswoman in 2010. So she's a credible figure. She may not have the money, but I think if Ole gets kicked off the ballot, I think that she becomes a real threat to Tanadar.
Do you think Ole would do write-in? Do you think you'd go for that?
I don't think that would be credible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Abby, I'm going to go out to you because we're talking about the primary season here in Detroit in the 13th. But let's go to a place where there's pretty much the game is already set there in the 7th when we're looking at Tom Barrett and Curtis Hurtel Jr. in that seat. Really important, the one that Alyssa Slotkin is vacating.
Yeah, absolutely. This is obviously a key seat. Republicans have had their eye on it for a while. You have Tom Barrett, great bio, great family, great retail presence, guy that puts in the work. I mean, people remember he hung on several times to his House seat, just hitting those doors. People respond really well to Tom in person, and retail is the nose over the finish line in these seats. And then, of course, you have Curtis Hurtel, who senator, representative, legislative aide to the governor, has all of your government bona fides that you would ask for. But I think the question is this comes down to who puts in the doors and who puts in the time for the doors and the face time to win the interest and win the ear of those voters.
Advantage for them that they can start doing that right now. They don't have to worry about the primary or duking it out within their own party.
Absolutely. I mean, they had a sit-down conversation last week where you can tell we're sort of, it's like a charm offensive. Like we're hair splitting on pretty much agreed upon issues, cost of living, quality education options for our kids. Like it's sort of figuring out who can say this in the most appealing way.
All right, so Chad, you're going to get the last word on this one. So how busy of a summer is it going to be for you over the next, beyond the summer, I was going to say, it's a year.
We got some pretty full primaries up in the 8th Congressional for the seat that Dan Kildee is vacating. And then everyone seems to want to run against John James up in the 8th in Macomb County. And so they're getting a lot of Democrats who are trying to, duke it out in that primary. So, yeah, it's going to be a busy summer for political reporters.
All right, Chad, Michael, Abby, thanks so much for joining me on this Sunday. I really appreciate it. All right, coming up, some good economic signs for Michigan are coming out of Oakland County. We'll go over the data on jobs and opportunity with Oakland County exec Dave Coulter. He joins me next when Flashpoint comes right back. Stay with me. Just a few days ago, economists at the University of Michigan released some pretty good news for Oakland County and by extension, Michigan. Not only has Oakland County rebounded from the pandemic faster than any other county in the state, it's attracting high-tech and high-paying jobs. With me now, Oakland County exec Dave Coulter. Dave, I really appreciate it. Anytime the U of M economists come out and wave a couple of headlines like this, it's got to be good to take a deep breath about what's going on.
It's really good news. And even though I'm a Spartan, and these are U of M economists, these are sharp guys who take a real critical look at things and have once again given us overall a pretty strong report card.
When they come back and they take a look at some of the data, you internally are also looking at all of the things, the initiatives that you're working on in the county, and when those things line up and you're able to see it, what were some of the big things that came out? I mean, the jobless rate and the labor force rate.
I mean, our unemployment is 2.9%. That's really strong. We're creating jobs. We're creating about 8,000 jobs a year, and we will for the next couple of years at least, according to their forecast. So that's good. We have bounced back from pre-pandemic levels. I mean, essentially, our economy is, where it would have been had we not had COVID. And that's, we don't talk a lot about COVID anymore, but it was a real disruptor economically and in a lot of ways. And now we are economically past.
And I think it's really interesting because you and I had talked through the years, especially during that time. And it's like we were doing certain programs and we're watching certain things. things, or we're able to kind of, help out with different initiatives here. So then when you look and say, okay, this worked to an extent? Is that what you say?
I think so. It did. We leaned in, especially for small businesses and the ones that were most vulnerable. But one of the things that was in our report that I found kind of stunning is they said this has been primarily a private sector rebound. In other words, the private companies in our county and basically the state are the ones that have led this rebound from COVID. And that's a good sign for the state, frankly. You don't want it to be just a public one. We gave it a public boost, but the private sector has taken over and really helped propel Michigan and Oakland County.
I want to take a look at also some of the numbers here, because while there is great news, there's also some soft numbers here that I think that will maybe keep you up at night for the next couple of years. When we talk about wage growth, only by 0.5%. So the jobs are there, but when we're looking at the amount people are being paid, still a little soft.
That's absolutely right. And we didn't, when I took over as county executive, we weren't tracking wage growth as part of this report. I asked them to do that because it's not enough just to get jobs. You want good paying jobs that people can raise a family on, right? So how are our wages doing? And I suspected they were lagging corporate and other profits and other indicators, and they are. And so it just reminds us that while I'm busy trying to attract jobs to Oakland County, I was in Taiwan and Korea recently trying to lure companies back to Oakland County, and we got a few, by the way. But we want to make sure that they're good paying jobs that you can raise a family on, right? We're not trying to get the low-end jobs. We want to make sure that if you can get a job in Oakland County that pays well, that you can raise a family on it. And so we've got to be more intentional about attracting the kinds of jobs that create the wages that people need to survive now.
Yeah, and I wanted to look at that, talking about advanced manufacturing and some of the growth there. But first of all, I want you to tell me what it's like in those rooms. When you go overseas, how do you sell Oakland County?
Wow. You have to sell both Oakland County and Michigan, let me just say, because because counties don't have, and I say that because we don't have economic financial incentives that we can give.
The state
does.
The
state does. So the state can offer those, and I know there's some debate about whether we should be doing this, but I'll tell you what, other states are over there doing that. So if we were to stop, we would be sort of unilaterally, tying our hands behind our back. You can love them or hate them, but other states are using them to attract companies. So I think they still have to be part of the mix. But for a place like Oakland County that can't offer that, all we can really offer is quality of life. Strong schools, strong neighborhoods, safe communities, and the like. And so that's what I try to sell them on, and most importantly, a talented workforce. And that's why the program that we created, Oakland 80, which is where we're trying to get more of our adults with post-secondary educations, is so critical. Because one of the reasons that Oakland County has done as well as it has is because they perceive us as having an educated workforce, the workers that they need. And so that's what I sell them on, is we'll have the engineers and the mechanics and the manufacturing talent that you need to be successful in Oakland County.
We talk about how higher ed is very important, but then at the same time we also talk about skilled trades, and we talk about that maybe college isn't for everyone, but we do know, statistically speaking, people with an advanced degree do have a higher paying job and trajectory in profession-wise. Where are we right now in Oakland County in terms of the population with the higher ed degrees?
Yeah, so when we started tracking it about 3 years ago, we were at 61% of our population, adults, that had something beyond high school, something post-secondary, which was good. The state of Michigan was around 40%. That's why the governor's goal is 60% now. So I said, well, we're already at 60%. We're at 61%. What should we do? But we got together the education leaders, but also, as you said, the skilled trades leaders, the people that do certification programs, and said, if we get really intentional about this, what can we do in Oakland County? And they informed me that, Mr. Exec, if you help lead this, we think we can get to 80%. And that's what we need to stay competitive as a county and as a state. So our goal is 80% of our adults. So we started at 61%, and I'm really excited to say, I announced earlier this year that in the 3 years, we got it up to 69%. So we've gone from 61 to 69% of our adults with something beyond beyond high school, which, as you said, the data is clear. If you want your wages to go up, you got to get that extra training or college.
Let me ask you this, though. I mean, among the things that kind of keep you up at night in leading a county of the size of Oakland County is we're looking at also an aging population. And that isn't just an Oakland County problem, that is a Michigan problem right now. What do you see as the issue there and a possible solution?
Yeah, and that was in the report as well, that they said that they thought that by 2026, Oakland County, 20% of its population will be older than 65. And the reason that's an economic issue is because those people need to be replaced in the workforce, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be attracting young people. And Michigan as a whole has not done a very good job of that. And the governor's acknowledged that. She has a growing Michigan task force, which I totally support. We have to figure out a way how to keep our young people, especially the ones that go on to school, to college or community college, or get these other certifications, to keep them here. And to do that, well, they want different things than we used to want when we were younger. They want walkable communities. They want transit, and I'm a huge transit advocate. They want walkable urban experiences, and that's why we're investing in downtown Pontiac, which I think can be Oakland County's urban experience. So they want different things, and so you have to listen to young people. What do they want? How do they want to raise their families? And then we have to start providing the things that are going to keep young people in this state.
Well, interesting roadmap here that the U of M economists laid out and all that you've done. Dave Coulter, it's good to see you. Thanks for checking in, and we'll be talking to you soon for sure.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
All righty. Coming up next, the toughest job in the world. Stay with me. And finally, a thank you to all the logistics managers, bankers, child psychologists, sustainability officers, veterinary technicians, teachers, and star chefs out there today. Yes, mothers, I'm talking to you. If it were up to me, this day would actually extend the whole month and there would be like paid time off, but I'm still working on that. And I'm sure my 3 children just rolled their eyes at that last line. You know, I know some of you planned your own celebration today, or you're making efforts to celebrate other mothers, because that's just what mothers do. And though this day can also be fraught with missing mothers and wishing to be mothers, we see all of that too. So for all of you carrying and making sure that tiny humans grow into productive people, it is the hardest CEO job that has ever been created, and there is no retirement age. Thank you, and especially thank you to my mother, whom I get to celebrate with today, who continues to mother me and my children. Happy Mother's Day. Now it's time for brunch. Devin is back in the big chair next week. I'm Christy McDonald, and for all of us at Local 4, have a great Sunday and take care.